Today on Artifactually Speaking, a kudurru.
Including curses.
I'm Dr. Brad Hafford, archaeologist at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm at the ancient city of Nimrud, Kalhu, and we've been excavating here now for 6 weeks. You can see some of our trenches here, and we have now found 5 pieces of this stone tablet. We call it a kudurru, but what is that? Well, it's an inscribed piece of stone. It's inscribed on both sides. We will hear more about what it says from Dr. John McGinnis soon, but I want to talk about where it was found. In fact, it was found in several places because we have so many different pieces. The odd part is that they were all found fairly high up in the fill, and I'm sitting about where one of them was found, in this long trench, somewhere up around here. And the question would be, why so far off of the floor? Why is it in all of the collapse? We think it's because it was stored in a second or third story of the building, and when everything collapsed, it came down. And that spread it out as well. So this piece is the first one that we found, and it was here in the trench in the courtyard of the Ninurta temple. The other pieces were all found behind me in a shrine. So wherever this fell, some pieces went that way and some this way. We've almost got the entire tablet, which is excellent news. There are copies of this, though, that have been studied, so we know what it says. There are some possible differences here, so we're still looking into that, but it's a really interesting artifact. When it broke up, it was smashed intentionally because someone was angry. The Babylonians destroyed this whole city and all of these temples. Or it's because when it was burning, all the rafters came down, heated this stone, and then everything starts to fall. This cracks up and splits and spreads out. I think that's probably what happened because it was clearly burned in the fire. Well, we will talk more with John here in just a moment to hear more about what it actually tells us, some really fascinating things. See you then. I'm here with the Assyriologist, Dr. John McGinnis, and he's going to tell us some more about this intriguing artifact that we call a kudurru. He'll tell us kind of what it is and what it says, maybe what it means, and how we research it. So, John, tell us about this.
Well, good afternoon, Brad, and thank you once again for inviting me to be a part of your channel. My name, as Brad said, is Dr. John McGinnis. I'm from Cambridge University in England. I'm a Mesopotamian archaeologist with a speciality in Assyriology. That's reading cuneiform inscriptions, the ancient writing system of Mesopotamia. Now, one of my old great friends I used to dig with in Turkey liked to say archaeology is like a jigsaw puzzle where you're missing most of the pieces. Well, on this occasion, I'm pleased to say we have a jigsaw puzzle where we have most of the pieces. It took a bit of time, though, and Brad's great patience, but we now have 5 of the pieces of what we call a kudurru. That's an inscribed stone monument recording a royal decree. This is the first piece to be found, and just finding this was pretty exciting. So we were quickly able to work out it was inscribed by a king called Adad-nirari III. He ruled from 811 to 758 BC, and actually it's a copy of a decree in which he gives the land of Hindanu, that's a huge tract of territory on the middle Euphrates, just south and east of the border between Iraq and Syria. He gives that to the governor of Rasapu, which is another huge tract of area just to the northwest on the Syrian side of that border. Now, this isn't the first time that archaeologists have found a copy of this decree. In fact, in 1930, the British archaeologist Campbell Thompson, working at Nineveh, found the first copy of this. And that was exciting, but the copy was severely damaged. Only around half the text was preserved. And one of the great things with our new find here is between this and the other 5 pieces that we've now found, we have almost 100% of the text. There's 2 words missing signs. In both cases, we can make an educated guess as to what the signs would be, and in any case, we know what they meant in an English translation, for example. So one by one, Brad recovered these blocks, and I'll see if I can put them together for you. These 2 ones go here. Then we found a corner piece which fits in just that way. Just a few days ago we found the bottom half of the stele, which allowed us to fill in large parts of the text previously unknown. And then the last piece is this corner piece here, which is going to slot in just like that. So we have a little bit missing here, but that doesn't matter because we know from the Nineveh version what that said. At the top we have a chunk missing. Now that's a shame. We're not missing any text, but we are missing some of the divine symbols. So if I can talk about the overall organisation of this document. First of all, it's formatted like a cuneiform clay tablet, so a rectangular tablet. At the top we have divine symbols, which I'll talk about in a second, and then the inscription, which comes all the way down the rest of the obverse, and then you turn it over and down the reverse as well. So as I mentioned, this is a decree granting the land of Hindanu to an official. His name was Nergal-eresh. He was a very high official in the Assyrian Empire of that time, in fact second only to the king. This was the beginning of a time when the Assyrian kings gave huge land assignments to a very small number of governors. This has been interpreted as a weakness, that the governors were grabbing too much power, but there's an alternative explanation that it was actually a strength, that he was strengthening the capability of these governors on his western and northern frontiers. And actually that's probably correct, because the Assyrians did manage to stop incursions in those two areas. So the inscription talks about the grant of the land. It repeats itself quite a few times, making it quite clear that this land was given to Nergal-eresh and to no one else. And then there's a long section which involves curses. Curses, curses, curses. Referring to anyone in the future who would come and try and take this land away from Nergal-eresh or any of his successors. And then curses which are going to be imposed upon them. Now normally you just have a phrase saying, if any future ruler should change this decision, and then the curses follow. In this case, and very unusually, and now filled out by our new fragment, not known from the previous Nineveh version, we have a very long and specific list of who these people could be. Any future king, or queen, or mother of the queen, or brother of the king, or son of the king, or general, or chief eunuch, or eunuch, and a few others. And fortunately, as Brad has commented to me, it doesn't include archaeologists, so we think we're safe on this account. Now what's going to happen to these people? The great gods are going to impose upon such a person an evil curse which cannot be undone. Very interestingly, the text originally finished at that point, and then there was a date. And then once the date is finished, which is normally the complete end of a text such as this, there's then some more curse formulae in which they're a little bit more specific, and they say, for example, that anyone who does alter the effects of this decree of Adonai III, that his offspring may be destroyed, his people scattered from his land, and that he will be clothed in leprosy like a garment. Pretty nasty stuff. So that deals with the inscribed text on this monument, but there's more to it than that. There's the divine symbols, which I'll come to very shortly, but also along the side, you may or may not be able to see, is a snake, the engraving of a snake on both sides actually. This is very unusual, and I think it probably relates to the fact that the man in question is called Nergal-eresh. The name means the god Nergal has desired. But the god Nergal himself was the god of the dead, and one of his strong symbols was the snake, not surprisingly, because the dead were resident in the underworld and had fatal powers, so it's not surprising that the snake was a very common symbol of the god Nergal, the god of the dead. So that's why I think we have the snake depicted along the two sides of this stele. So now let's talk about the divine symbols on the upper piece of stone here. They're a little bit faded and difficult to see, but they've been very carefully cleaned by our conservator, Ewout, who does an amazing job out here. We don't know what all of them represent, but we have part of a circle which is going to be a divine nimbus, a divine shield, which represents the goddess Ishtar, a very powerful goddess in ancient Mesopotamia. We have some lightning, some forked lightning on a stand. That's certainly for the god Adad, the god of weather and rain, and because rain allows agriculture, a supremely important god in northern Mesopotamia. We have a winged mythical figure, almost certainly the Anzu bird, maybe associated with Ninurta, but not normally found on kudurru, so that's interesting. We have a lamp. It looks like a shoe, but I believe it's a lamp. That represents the god Nusku, a god of light and healing. 2 plants on pedestals, which I don't know what they mean. In fact, Dr. Michael Dandy, the director of the project here at Nimrud, is going to be doing some research on finding out just these kind of things. And then some more symbols at the top, a bit more damaged. Of course, we're still missing a piece. As I mentioned, we have the complete text, but it would be great to have the piece up here giving us the rest of the symbols. So that's a snapshot of our kudurru. I just want to say on a personal note, what a pleasure and a privilege it is to be digging here, and also the feeling of continuity. Over my shoulder we have the crumbled mud brick remains of the old Malawan dig house. That's the dig house of the British expedition which worked here in the 1950s. One of the archaeologists then was David Oates. He later became a very distinguished professor in our field, and he in turn was one of my teachers. So it's very satisfying to be here, continuing in the tradition of my teacher and so many other colleagues from Iraq and around the world who have laid the foundations for Mesopotamian archaeology.